What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my watch list for game week 15. So I'm going to go through some of the players that I've got my eye on for the final couple of game weeks before that World Cup break. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. And we're going to start off with Callum Wilson. Now, this is not some massive need yet, because I did have him on my watch list video for game week 14, but I think a lot of people are going to consider him now this week. So I want to take another look. And the numbers are looking good, right? 0.66 non-penalty expected goals per 90. He's scoring 0.74 goals per 90 as well, which is excellent, and 5.9 points per match. And ultimately, when he's been fit this season, he's done really well. And that is kind of Callum Wilson all over. He can't necessarily stay fit, but when he does, he's always scoring goals, and he's got penalties in his locker as well. And if we have a quick look at how he's done so far this season, because he did have like a little bit of a break, and I know people were worried about Isak, but obviously he's out to the World Cup, so we're not even worried about him. He did miss game weeks 4 to 8, then he came back for 65 minutes, and he's played every single game since. 6 goals, 3 assists in, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 returns in 9. Lots of forwards, right? Bearing in mind at the start of the season, we're all looking at defenders, maybe a few forwards with Haaland in there as well. Some people went for Kane. But Wilson's got 9 and 9. Mitrovic has got an extremely good record. Kane's been super consistent. Haaland's been brilliant. It is so far the year of the forward. I just can't really see too many reasons not to bring Wilson in. Now, if you did go in game week 14, things looked a little bit better because you had that home fixture against Aston Villa, whereas now you've got an away game, then a game against Chelsea. Now, playing Chelsea is not necessarily ideal. Their defence is usually pretty good, but we're coming off the back of a game week where they've just conceded 4 goals. Now, I don't necessarily expect that to happen again anytime soon, but they've got to go away to Newcastle. That's not going to be an easy fixture. And the key thing for me is not that Brighton, really good game, went and scored 4 goals, fair play. It's not really that's making me think Newcastle can do it. It's how good that Newcastle attack has been so far this season. Top 5 for non-penalty expected goals. They do cause defences problems, and Wilson is their main man right now as well, and he's got those penalties. So Southampton is a defence that I think Newcastle can get at. It's not necessarily going to be easy to go away to Southampton. We saw them keep Arsenal down to 1 goal, and then Arsenal went and scored 5 against Nottingham Forest. So I'm not saying that's going to be an easy game, but I think when you look at the other forwards you could pick from around that price, there's not a huge amount of options now, especially when Tony is out, not out injured, he's out suspended, right, because he's picked up 5 yellow cards. So I think Newcastle will give Chelsea a pretty good game. I don't think they're going to go and score 4 goals, but they could easily score 1 or 2, and Wilson could easily be involved with them as well. So I don't really see too many reasons to look against him unless you just don't have the money. And again, I don't think, he's a really good option now, and obviously he's going to be flavour of the week because he's just got 4 returns from the 4 goals, and a lot of people have got Tony, who's now suspended. So it is an easy move, and I wouldn't, stop anyone doing that, right? It's a really easy move to do. I wouldn't argue against it. I wouldn't panic if you haven't got him. That's all I would say. The reason that he's on my watch list, because I've sold Foden, I've got a bit of money in the bank, I can actually afford to do Mitrovic to Wilson. Now, whether or not that's a good move, I'll discuss more in the team selection. I think what I tend to do is early on in the week, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I kind of think about all the possibilities that I could go for, which players I want to look at, and then you narrow that down as the week goes on with more information about suspensions and injuries and stuff like that. So Callum Wilson firmly on the watch list once again. His ownership's gone up a bit, his price has gone up. That's going to continue to happen. He looks like a great option for Southampton away, Chelsea at home, and the way Newcastle fixtures are after the World Cup, we may even be tripling up. Some of you are probably already on that. I've been very slow on Newcastle, I have to admit. So up next is Kevin De Bruyne, who continues to mock me. I did say, despite everything that had happened so far this season, that I thought that Salah would outscore De Bruyne from game weeks 11 till game week 16, right? Now, so far, Salah is on 20 points and Kevin De Bruyne is on 22. So there's only 2 points in it. That could flip in the last 2 game weeks, right? Maybe Salah gets a couple of penalties and he pulls ahead. But do you know what makes it worse? De Bruyne missed game week 12, so he's actually played 1 less game than Salah, and he scored 2 more points, right? It's hard to continue to look against him. He's on 6.8 points per match. He's had a fantastic season. But the key reason I'm looking at him this week, despite the obvious that he's great, they've got 2 decent home fixtures, they're going to score plenty of goals, is captaincy, because I think it's quite tricky this week depending on how your team is set up and depending on how kind of different you're maybe willing to go with captaincy. So if we look at my team, for example, Haaland's the obvious one. If he's fit and confirmed fit by Pep, etc., and it looks like that he's going to play, and it is worth noting, It's a later deadline this week. It's 1:30 UK time. There's 4 games on at 3 o'clock, and Man City is one of them. So we could get potential leaks about the lineup. And obviously, if Haaland starts, he's definite captain, right? Even I'm not going to look against it this week. But if he's not playing, well, what are the other options? Mitrovic, definitely not against Man City. He could be transferred to Wilson, but I wouldn't want to necessarily captain Wilson against Southampton away. Then you've got Arsenal players against Chelsea away. And I know some of these players are flagged. We're going to hear twice from managers who are managing teams in Europe, right? We'll hear one press conference before the European game, another one before the Premier League game. So I'm not worried about the flags. Zaha and Solanke are just not captain options. And I don't really want to captain a defender, although Cancelo against Fulham at home could be decent. So then my other option is Salah. Now, if this was Salah and Liverpool from last year, I probably wouldn't mind captaining him at all. And he probably is, behind Haaland, the best option in my side. But I'm just not that confident about it. And if I can just go straight to Kevin De Bruyne with Fulham at home, that's probably the best option if Haaland is out. And the good thing is, although I would really want Salah for Southampton at home in game week 16, and it would absolutely kill me if I don't own him and he gets like 2 or 3 goals in that game, De Bruyne has obviously got the Brentford at home game as well. So if I do get him in, and then other stuff crops up in my team where I can't reverse the transfer, it's still a good fixture, and I could just hold on to him for one more week and hope that I don't get too heavily punished by Salah. And to be honest, if Haaland's back, everyone's going to be captaining him anyway. So that's why I'm looking at De Bruyne. I don't think he's a player that I have to get in my side, because if Haaland's fit, I'll captain him, and if Foden starts, I could just get him instead for a cheaper price and hold on to Salah. But that is why I'm strongly considering him, because I think this week captaincy is difficult, and anyone that doesn't have De Bruyne, and if Haaland's not an option, they're going to just stick it on someone else, which might be fine, right? People will go for Kane against Liverpool. That doesn't look too bad right now. But I think for those that don't go for De Bruyne, that could then be a big differential for me. And don't get me wrong, if Haaland's out, a lot of people are going to look at this move as well. But that is why I'm looking at it, captaincy. He's a great option to bring in anyway if you've got spare funds or a spare move or something like that. But for my personal watch list and my team, it's mostly revolving around captaincy. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with Haaland. I think we have to laugh about what's happened with Trossard since that hat-trick for Liverpool, right? If we just have a quick look at his return. So he got the hat-trick against Liverpool, right? Brilliant. Then he didn't score against Spurs, but I think a lot of us expected that to happen, right? The Spurs defence generally is pretty good. I know I'm saying that after they just conceded 2 goals to Bournemouth, but that was always going to be a difficult game, so fair enough. Then people brought him in ahead of Brentford and Forest, and he blanked against Brentford, an away game. He only got 68 minutes, fair enough. Then loads of us got him in for Nottingham Forest, and they just could not score. And it was super frustrating. And then we all transferred him out, which, by the way, I think was a perfectly reasonable move to make. You cannot, like, you can be frustrated that it went wrong, but you can't like kind of beat yourself up about making that move. It was a perfectly reasonable move to make, especially with the fixtures that Foden and Saka had. It just hasn't worked out that well. And then he's gone and scored against both Man City away and Chelsea at home. But the interesting thing for me was against Chelsea, where they did bang in 4 goals, he played up front. He wasn't in that left wing back spot. And that is obviously a positive, especially when he's got 2 pretty good fixtures to come, Wolves away and Aston Villa at home. So I think he's back on the watch list because of that. But in the back of my mind, I am a little bit worried that in any given game, he could just be moved over to that left wing spot. It doesn't mean that he can't score from that position, because it's not like it's an out-and-out defensive kind of role for him, right? He still gets forward, he's still very creative, he's still getting shots in the box and stuff like that. But if I'm going to get to choose between him playing on the left or playing as the kind of centre forward, I'm going to want him in that centre forward role. So I do think he looks like a pretty good option over the next couple of weeks. I think we have to forget about the fact that, you know, the last 3 games have been hugely frustrating. Nothing against Forest. We transfer him out and then he goes and gets 2 goals, because ultimately he's on 6.1 points per match for the season. He's been fairly consistent for most of this year. He's on 7 goals, 2 assists, and those 2 fixtures are not that bad, especially for a very good Brighton side. The key question then comes down to, he's going to take up a midfield spot, so whose place is he taking? If Saka is out, you know, is Foden the best option? Is he definitely going to start? Is it Trossard? Could it be Rashford? And maybe funds don't even matter. Maybe we should also be looking at Almiron as well. So I think that's maybe the issue with kind of going for Trossard. There's lots of other good options as well. But I think it's genuinely tough. I think unless you've got the money to maybe go up to a Foden and you're sure he starts, you're probably then looking at And I definitely would be looking at someone a little bit cheaper because I wouldn't have the funds to go to like a De Bruyne or a Son without selling kind of Haaland. So then it's a case of looking at Trossard, Rashford, Almiron. And I think that's pretty close right now. I think Rashford has 2 away games. I believe it's Fulham and Aston Villa. I'm just going to check. I should know this, right? Man United fan and all that. Yeah, Villa away and Fulham away. So on paper, they're probably the better fixtures. And Man United are playing quite well right now, but they're both away games. At least for Trossard, you've got a home game in there. And obviously Almiron's got to play against Chelsea as well. And if Chelsea kind of perform how we know they can do, the goals might be kept down in that game. I still think Newcastle can easily score 1 or 2, but Almiron might, who knows, right? He could be involved, he might not be. That's FPL. What I'm trying to say is, it's a difficult decision then for these cheaper players. I think I would probably still lean more towards Rashford. Probably a little bit of bias there for Man United as well. But for anyone that needs a £7 million or below midfielder, I don't think it's the worst time to bring Trossard back in. So I know off the back of Game Week 14, the obvious forward to bring in looks like Callum Wilson right now, but not everybody has 7.4 million to spend. He could even rise to 7.5 soon enough. So if you need someone under 7 million, Scamacca is definitely worth a look. 2 pretty nice home fixtures, Palace at home and Leicester at home. I wouldn't say they're super easy or anything like that, but you'd back West Ham to score in both of those games, and Scamacca is their main centre forward right now. Antonio seems to be playing in the Europa League. They also have a Carabao Cup game before Game Week 16. I'm pretty sure that Antonio will play in that as well. Now, Scamacca did come off before the 60th minute yesterday because his minutes had been pretty good and slowly kind of rising as he plays more and more games in the league. But he did come off before the 60th minute against Man United. But that was more to do with what was happening in the game. He was always already on a yellow card, maybe came close to getting a second one as well. So I don't think David Moyes could risk leaving him on. There is a chance. I think the commentators were talking about it, that possibly if that hadn't happened, the yellow card and stuff like that, Moyes may have played both Antonio and Scamacca to give that defence a little bit more to think about. But obviously we didn't get to see that because of the yellow card situation. But I don't think that necessarily dents his starting opportunities going forward. We will obviously see West Ham in Europe this week, so if Antonio plays again in that one, Scamacca's almost certainly going to start at the weekend because I don't think Antonio can play that many games in a row. And I think Scamacca's looked pretty good. The numbers don't necessarily back that up, like 0.27 non-penalty expected goals per 90 is not necessarily fantastic for a forward that costs 6.7, but if we look, basically, I think it's a little bit harsh to judge him on the numbers alone so far because at the start of the season when he first came in, he was only getting minutes off the bench. He only started once before Game Week 9, and obviously since then he's continued to start. So Moyes has integrated him into the team quite slowly. They have had some pretty good fixtures, so it would have been more promising to see better numbers there. But I think from the eye test, he has looked fairly decent for West Ham. They are going to create chances over the next couple of games. Whether or not he has penalties, I'm not 100% sure about that. Bowen did kind of say that he wouldn't have them anymore, but they've got Lanzini there, Ben Rama. If they're on the pitch, they may take them ahead of Scamacca. We just don't know. So I wouldn't rely on the penalties, but I do think for a final 2-game week punt, he looks pretty good below 7 million. I do think he's better than Mitrovic for the final 2 game weeks. That doesn't necessarily mean that Mitrovic to Scamacca is worth a transfer because you might have other stuff going on in your team. So for my team, for example, and again, just to bring you back to it, yes, I could do Mitrovic to Scamacca. I've got the money to do Mitrovic to Wilson. But if I need De Bruyne, he's going to be my focus. And then I may just keep Mitrovic. Either play him or play Webster instead. So it's going to come down to your own team setup, whether or not you use that transfer. But if for some reason you need a forward under 7 million for the next 2 game weeks, I think Scamacca is a pretty good shout. If Martial was fit, maybe we'd go for him. But he isn't, and he rarely is. So we're not going to worry about that or anything like that. So Scamacca, let me know what you think about all the players I've spoken about in the comments below. If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.